Hello, everybody. I am inviting Renee to join me so we can chat some more about our favorite topic, creativity and all of it. Things. So here she is. Looks like she's joining now.
Ah,
Hi.
hello, our favorite topic.
So, what's coming up for you this week on the topic of creativity and ritual and self-care?
I don't know about well, I've been trying to do a little ritual every day. My
Mhm.
friend Ariella gave me a little candle with all the roses and stuff in it. And so I've been trying to light it every day and
Mhm.
do a little meditation, real teensy tiny.
Mhm.
And I probably succeeded 5 out of 7 days.
That's great.
So it's fun because it's beautiful and it's a
Mhm.
ritual. But honestly, we've had such chaotic, crazy shitstorm at our house that
Mhm.
I was making jokes and I was thinking, I never have time to do social media, but I thought, okay, if I could make a funny meme, I would say this. Something about sometimes self-care and ritual and creativity look like this. I light a candle, I write a poem, I do my vocalization, whatever, and that's my self-care. Or I rub the lotion on my flesh to appreciate my largest organ, which is my skin, and I give
Mhm.
it nutrition and love. And sometimes, I swear, self-care is staying above water and not drowning.
Yeah,
That's all you can do is just stay afloat, and that's how you love yourself, is you didn't crash and burn.
totally. That's so real, so true. I mean, I've experienced that over and over in my life. And then also that pressure of like, why am I not taking good care of myself? Or I should be doing this, or I should be eating this, or I should be sleeping like this, or whatever.
Well,
Um,
I took your advice from way back in July, and I just kept, because I had a little breakdown. I don't want to tell the whole story, but someone said they'd call the police on me. That's how I was raging at them through double
wow.
glass. And I was raging because they couldn't hear me, but I also was making a conscious choice. Look at how upset I am and go to bed with that in your mind, because you're wrong. You're doing something wrong. And I'm like Frances McDormand in Friends with Money. I'm not backing down, right? So, but I laid in bed. I thought, okay, I can sit there and feel like shit about it. I can cry about it, or I can surrender into the fact that that's what I chose at the moment, and just
Mhm.
be okay with it and be like, okay, that's not who I want to be all the time or ever again, maybe. But it just don't,
Mhm.
because I have so much self hatred when I have those little breakdowns, that it really
Oh
adds to
yeah.
it. So I was just trying to be loving to myself and go, okay, that happened. And it probably happened for a reason. And sometimes you're the devil in someone's story, and sometimes
Yeah.
you're the angel in someone's story. And I'm willing
Mhm.
and I'm okay with being the devil in someone's story if that's what's going to help them learn that we are all connected. You don't treat human beings like that. So, but yeah, it's been a crazy week, and we are all connected because I have been picking up on everybody's crazy energy.
Yes,
So
definitely. And yeah, I think it's partially the season too. But yeah, I mean, I think you know, when it comes to ritualizing things, we we do what we can based on where we're at. And I think actually a big part of ritual, I think, is attuning our nervous system
mm-hmm.
to a different frequency than what we're experiencing, right? So at the most extreme, and as someone who's experienced anxiety, um, very extreme anxiety, at the far end of the spectrum, I'm just trying to feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever rituals I'm doing are just trying to bring me into a space of feeling okay and
Mm-hmm.
feeling grounded and feeling like a human being and feeling like I'm not floating 10,000 miles off the ground or all these various strange sensations that go along with experiencing anxiety. But now I'm in this really beautiful place in my life, in the ebbs and flows of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm in a place where my nervous system is very regulated.
Nice.
And I'm having the opportunity to have new rituals emerge because I'm not constantly trying to get to a place of regulation and homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Homeostasis is achieved. And
Mm-hmm.
after that point, everything opens up in a much richer way. So
Mhm.
even creativity, homeostasis has to be somewhat achieved for creativity to emerge in the sense of that we're talking about creativity, not obviously when we're surviving, we are often very creative
Yeah,
to figure
yeah,
out how to
because
survive.
you're in crisis. Yeah, yeah.
Right. But what I'm noticing, for instance, right now, I'm taking my son to school in the mornings. The mornings are a little bit like full. I wouldn't really say hectic, but they're full. There's like, okay, we do this and we do that and we put on clothes and we brush teeth and we do breakfast. And so my evenings are really empty and I'm loving that. So my evenings are just like, okay, I'm done with work now. My son's fed. He's all taken care of. He's doing his own thing. And there's just this space. And in that space, I've just been drinking a lot of tea.
Oh,
I'm,
good.
it's cold here. It's not always nice to walk outside in the evening. It's windy, and I'm just sitting and being with my tea.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to drink tea every night this week or, something like that. It just emerges naturally because when your nervous system comes into a regulated state, it desires the next ritual to bring it into an even more
Mm.
calm and regulated state, right? So on the extreme, there's like severe anxiety and you're just looking to feel okay. And then on this other side, you're like, or let's say in the middle is regulation, like homeostasis. And then when I cross that, I'm doing it backwards for people who are, so when you cross homeostasis, you start to you kind of keep following that thread, right? Like the golden thread. And what is the thread leading to? It's leading back to the self. Um, because homeostasis ultimately it's a biological state, right? The self exists beyond that even. It's
Yeah.
deep within the heart, let's say. And so these little rituals that emerge are just like the self calling me home. And I don't, it doesn't have to be like, oh, a 15-day challenge or oh, I
Right.
meditated
Right.
like this many minutes or, I think that doesn't hurt, it doesn't
Right.
hurt to establish habits that way. But it still gets us into that mindset of the linear and the like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I should do it like this, as well as like keeping score.
Well, and I like the words like, well, what if I did this? Or how funny, I've been doing this. And I have enjoyed it. So
Exactly.
perhaps, so it's like that it's organic, it's natural, and it's
Yeah.
happening. And then it turns into a ritual. What you've been saying, I can't help it. I'm sorry, but it reminds me of voice training because let's
Mhm.
say, you're full of anxiety, and for a singer, that's your horse. So until you get the hoarseness, the nodules, the swelling, the edema, the
Mhm.
polyps, whatever the hell is ruining your vocal cord phonation approximation, get that clear. Then we can start building the blocks because you can't build a wall from here up. You have to start at the bottom and you have to put all the bricks in place so that you can get stronger and stronger so that you can get to the top of that. And then ultimately you're going to be able to not only just not be hoarse anymore, like you've got your
Yeah.
homeostasis now, you can work on technique. Then with that technique, you're going to then express yourself in this way. Then when you get so nailed with that, you nail it so well, then you get your creativity to come in and engage your heart. As you're saying, it calls you
Yeah.
home. But you have to be at a certain point for it to feel like art or to feel like it's coming from your heart. It has to be
Yes.
autotelic. And so getting
Mhm.
into flow in creativity, which you can do it with singing, you can do it with being a short order cook or being on the line in a gourmet restaurant. When you guys, when any of us get into flow in whatever it is we're doing, we reach that state in our beta waves or our beta waves. And we reach that, and that's what regulates your nervous system. So if it's ritual, great. If it's just a regular self-care, it's great. But it does remind me of the ultimate goal, which is to create art with your technique, not
Mhm.
just to have good technique. So,
Totally.
and the thing about that, what I was going to say earlier, you said, oh, I've had that in my life so many times. And then you said, right now I'm experiencing this great homeostasis. And of course, because I'm, almost 60, I think, yeah, I've been there too. And I never thought I'd be back here, like running around
Mhm.
like a chicken with my head cut off, unable to wash my face since Saturday. Like, really? So I, I just want to feel like that's so weird because that happens in the arts too. And it happens with writers block and writer's flow happens with singing. You lose your chops. You got to get your chops up.
Yeah.
It can happen, but hopefully you won't get down to the bottom of the brick wall ever again. You won't be brickless. You'll be,
Yeah.
it just, you're going to suffer back and forth because that's life. It's messy. It's chaotic. There's storms. And during the good times of homeostasis and the peaceful nights and the tea and all that, I heard, it's not Brennan Manning. It's the guy who wrote The Undefeated Mind. Can't remember his name. The times that you're experiencing now are literally to build you up so that when a storm comes, your brick wall won't collapse and you'll be able to manage whatever storms come your way. Because to think that we're all going to have this Currier and Ives perfect, Norman Rockwell existence without chaos, without messiness, without yelling, maybe once in a while, screaming, losing your shit. Of course, but it's how you react to all those things and how you get yourself back as fast as you can to your homeostasis.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that one, there's this idea that like we shouldn't have those extremes, right? And yes, like ritual and self-care helps you in a large way because it fills your tank of reserve so that you can be adaptable. It fills your energy tank so that you can draw on it when you need to adapt. But at the same time, like there's so much outside of our control. And so I think that idea that like, oh, it's our fault if we're, suffering or if we're going through a hard time or if we're XYZ, getting sick or whatever, is very Western because it puts the onus, it centers us. It centers us as the center of the universe,
Yeah.
basically.
I love when you use that word onus because it's on us. It is such a great word.
It is a good word.
And sometimes, when you're being all judgmental on somebody else and they're in their negative shitstorm spiral, right? And you're like, well, you're in the shitstorm now. Like, good luck getting out. Because once all those negative things start happening, it's almost as if you're inviting more because you don't have the wherewithal, or you don't have the positivity, or you don't have the right frequency to stop that pattern. And it's all scientifically true. And yet, guess what? Shit still happens.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And it's possible for shit to happen and also deal with it with grace and have a different kind of frequency. It's sort of one of those catch-22 things. But, going back to what you were saying about singing and producing art or creating art as like the main goal, really, to me, the goal is what we might call from the outside creating art, but really it's having that unification, right? So when there's a sense of stress and anxiety, there's a sense of inherent separateness, like you're apart from whatever that thing is. And I think singing is the perfect example. I've experienced that just in the past several months in the arc of my own emotions and state of mind and everything with my singing that I'm doing. I notice that when I'm stressed, my vocal cords are so tight, like a tight rubber band, and my ability to express is like truly inhibited.
It's
I
so
remember
true.
I remember noticing this when I used to do singing lessons with you and I was young. I started to get to the point where I was just so tense all the time. I couldn't even sing because it was kind of painful. And I didn't have any like diagnosed condition or anything as far as like my vocal cords went, but it just got to this point where you can't even get enjoyment out of the little pleasures because there's so much tension.
Well,
And
yeah, because your voice is reflective, your external voice is reflective of your internal voice.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's so wildly connected. And then
So
when you do feel that flow and you are connected to your interior realm to the point where you feel like this is really working, I'm expressing myself and it's making you feel better. And then when you have an audience on top of that, you have, like at a concert with a band, you have that amazing, just there's nothing like it. The way music can connect us, and singing is our voice. So it isn't necessarily that, the metaphor, it's a metaphor. Yeah, singing is kind of like that living art. But it's all the same because that's still calling us home. When you're
totally.
singing at a concert and your audience is just there. No, I'm not going to say they're worshiping you. They're worshiping the unity. They're worshiping that experience of coming together and having a shared experience. They may
Right.
think they're worshiping whatever his name is, Bono, They
Fun,
may
bunch
think,
of
yeah, they may think it's him they're worshiping, but really they're in love with him and worshiping him because of what he brings them in their lives. Unity and connection and just self-expression, to the point that I could have said that. I could have written that. I feel that. It feels
yeah,
so good in that regard. So anyway,
yeah,
I don't know how I got off on that, but I guess I was just kind of trying to qualify the fact that yes, it's a metaphor for the living art, the art of living, but it's
yeah.
also such a point of connection, and just the tension that you feel. That's so obvious to a singer because the vocal cords are tiny, like the size of a dime or so. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty amazing that your whole personality can be put on hold, and your whole life can be almost destroyed by not being able to use your voice.
Yeah.
It's traumatic. So that it's a channel, and there's just, the voice is such a amazing um, mirror.
Yeah, it's a perfect metaphor, really. It's hard to explain to people who don't sing right away, you know. But I've been experiencing that too, you know, on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm working on a piece by Hildegard, whom I'm obsessed with. If you know me at all, I'm obsessed with her. And she's an 11th century mystic and polymath, and you know, this uh, composer as well. So I'm working on a piece of hers, and it's Gregorian chant. So it's unlike anything I've ever done
It
before.
sure is. Oh my gosh, how
Yeah,
fun.
it's very fun. At first it was very like effortful, a lot of like sight reading, like every little up, up, down, down, up, you know, really focused, really like mathematical kind of, really like left brain, I guess I'm trying to say. And I got to a place the week before yesterday, or let's see, Tuesday is my, so yeah, yesterday. The week before, I was like at the bottom, like I was having a dip. I don't know what was going on, but my whole body was just like, no, like this isn't happening. You know, I was all up in my nose and nasal, and I was tight, and I was, you know, it was just not a fun like experience. And then this week I go in and really, you know, no like external measurable change really.
Yeah.
Um, but I go in and just something is opened,
Mm-hmm.
and my connection to the music is deeper, and my relationship to the sound is emotional rather than intellectual. Like it moved into a place where there's unity happening. Like I wouldn't say that I was entirely in a flow state or something like that, but that there are pockets of that opening up. And
That's
with
so
Hildegard's
exciting.
music, oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, it's like channeling something when you're singing her music, you know, it's really
Well, especially
it's
because
otherworldly.
you're studying her philosophy, her life, her dedication, and she's quite underrepresented in
Mhm.
history, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, you're able to find a lot of stuff on her right now, maybe because of the, you know, the swing toward the pendulum swinging towards the goddess. I don't know, but even Joan of Arc. But anyway, like I'm in
Mhm.
love with David Bohm, the, you know, physicist. I can't imagine, after reading everything he's ever written, after looking at all his videos, after looking into his cute little eyes, I can't imagine if he wrote a song and I got to sing it.
Mhm.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine that. All I can do is read his words and watch him on video. I'm just absolutely worship his philosophies and what he's given to this planet. Can't imagine if he wrote a
Mhm.
song and I got to sing it. That would be like, talk about communion. Whew.
Yeah, I mean it's the ultimate ritual because not only did she write it to be worship, and it is, and it's so juicy and so like feminine centered and all about the mother, and you know that's what like
Oh
she writes about
gosh.
all the time. Not only did she write it to be that, but it's like stretching across centuries and touching that.
Oh my gosh.
And
Talk
I
about
mean,
connection. It connects era to era.
it does, and you know, woman to woman, and you know, seeker to seeker, and then it also connects the audience because you know like what you were saying about Bono or whoever we're talking about, Bono I guess, is the performance or the playing of the music, and that whole experience is a collective experience. There's no real like, okay, he's providing them with music and they're spectators. Like the crowd is alive and teeming, and any musician, any performer will tell you. that the crowd is a part of the
Yes,
performance.
absolutely.
Whether that's a positive thing or a negative thing, is another issue. But if you have a dead crowd and they're just not giving you any energy, anyone who's ever been on stage knows what that's like. And it's not a like a single, like it's not an individual
Mm-hmm.
process that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's
so
symbiotic.
yeah, exactly. Symbiotic is the word. So
A teacher will tell you that too. A teacher who's teaching a classroom.
yeah, totally.
You have great days where you just get into the flow and the students are, it's like this symbiotic relationship between you and the classroom or whatever. And sometimes
Absolutely.
amazing. It's a
Yeah,
shared experience, shared discovery.
completely. When I was a preschool teacher, I would notice very clearly, like an extreme correlation with if I was like off in my head and distracted and kind of like thinking about other things or not fully present, the kids would lose it and they would just go crazy and they'd spill everything and they'd break things and they'd make
Yeah.
big messes. And it's almost like I can't remember where I was reading this, but that there's someone else had observed this phenomenon with their children, as a mother, as a parent, like your children want you to be present with them, right? And so they often act up when you're not.
Yes.
Um, and even the family, not just your children, like your husband, your whatever, your partner,
Mm-hmm.
there's different kinds of awareness that we can give to people. And there's our physical presence, and then there's our focused attention, and the kids would always flip out when I was
Yeah.
like they would
Yeah.
just lose it. And then I would know, oh, okay, I better like get into shape. And so it was
Yeah.
like this immediate feedback loop that helped me
It's
to be
immediate.
really
Perfect.
present.
Yeah. It's a loop. It sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that with just Achilles, my grandson, because I have certain hours and that I need to go get stuff done, and my
Um,
shift will be over. And if I'm not like entirely engaged, it's just not good for me either.
mhm.
If I'm always thinking of the next thing that I have to get done that I'm not doing, it's a great exercise in just being present because it is a loop. Because if I'm not really present, I don't know how else to put it, but if I'm not enjoying the time and pouring my heart into it and I'm just calling it in, whether it's my
Mhm.
grandson or my students, which I've told you before, I've been sick or in a bad mood, or I've been teaching 36 years, and
Mhm.
sometimes 40 hours a week, sometimes 30. I'm down to very few hours right now. But if I want to go in because I'm not feeling it, and I'm going to just call it in. I'm just going to go stand there, run through the exercises, tell them great job. I can't do it. I
Yeah.
literally can't do it. I get so engaged in no, we got to fix that. I want to go in the house, but we got to fix that. We got to no, we got to talk about that. Oh, I just get so into it. I lose track of everything. And and
Totally.
and if I could live my life the way I teach, I mean, that would be great because you do play off your students. It's such a great
Totally.
exchange.
Yeah, and I think the reason that happens is because we can't be in integrity with ourselves, especially with another being, in that space with your student who you care deeply about and you love, and you care about their evolution and their learning and their growth and their expression and all of those things. You can't not
Yeah.
be there for them because that's an expression of your care.
Well,
And so,
it's I love the care that this is coming up again because this was
mhm,
last. When did we start the care? Last March? No, last January.
it was a while back.
January, February, March. Yeah. And I mean, literally, I still remember those talks about care. And I don't think of my teaching career like care, but it sure is.
Oh
I'm
my
being
gosh,
paid.
Renee. Oh my gosh, as your former student. Oh my gosh.
I am being paid to care for people. I don't have to care deeply, but I can't help that I'm wired that way, and I do care deeply. But it would be nice to. I mean, I have tried it on. I've tried to be just the guy that goes out there and just like runs through it. And good job. I can't do it.
Yeah,
Even
I can't do that in any form in my life. All the jobs I've had, I was either it came down to do I care about this? And if I didn't, there came a point where no matter how badly I wanted to do the job, I had to diverge from because it just got to a point where it was painful, like
yeah.
physically, emotionally painful
Hmm.
to keep showing up.
Yep.
You
And
know.
good for you that you figured that out at a young age, right?
Well, I pretty recently figured it out, but
I
yeah,
had I had my chart
34.
read. Uh, years ago I had my chart read, 2016. And I listen to it all the time because each time, because now it's 2021, almost 2022. So 6 years ago, I hear different things, uh,
Mhm.
because I recorded it. And what I just heard just this year, recently, this year wasn't what I heard before. It was, you are so
Mhm.
intense, girl. You better learn to rest.
Yeah.
This time. It's okay, because before it was like validating, oh, I'm so intense. Oh, makes the Venus was doing something, and that's why I'm allowed to be how I am, right? But now
Yeah.
this time, I listened to her, and she's like, you've got, a person like this has got to learn to rest. But that's
Mhm.
something that I'm still working on. I'm still learning
Mhm.
how. And so I'm getting there. And boy, have we been focusing on great stuff for me. I mean, just in these conversations. And, it's all applicable to me as a new grandma and as an empty nester gone back to a complete family. And then, you obviously are in a family again, not
Mhm.
just isolated mother son, right? You're
Mhm.
operating as part of a whole. And
Yeah.
then all the talk about self-care and ritual and creativity and how come it's sacred. I loved how you titled last week's Why It's Sacred, because gosh, that was fun. It was great.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it all just comes back around, you know? It's so, yeah. I think at this point we should just stop titling ahead of time and just like, what are we going to talk about today? Let's just talk. And then,
Yeah.
it emerges.
Well,
So,
it's hard. I'm so reticent sometimes to really like talk about what I'm going through because um I don't know, I feel like nobody cares, first of all, but second of all, it just becomes such an illustration for
mhm.
uh I don't want to use the word manifest because I'm not in that club, but it sure becomes a vehicle, for all of the conversations that we have over the past year now to
Mhm.
embody, what's it called, to
Mhm.
materialize, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I challenge the notion that people don't want to hear it because I think people want to hear and see themselves reflected in other people and have their experiences validated. And the experiences that we're talking about are very human, you know?
Yeah. 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 Well, and as Julia Cameron says, it's, artistry, which we can apply to the art of living, is just this big mountain, and we're going around this way to reach, to arrive, whatever you want that arrival is.
Mhm.
Homeostasis came up today. But
Mhm.
what she says is that as you come around this side of the mountain, let's say the dark side, it's really hard. And then you come around to the light side and you get better at what you do. Well, each time you come back to the dark side, you're a little higher up.
Mhm.
So it's less maybe scary. It's less painful. It's less dramatic. Who knows? Because
Yeah.
you have that life skill to know that it's just coming around the side of the mountain. So
Yeah, and best case scenario, eventually it just becomes like a swinging of the pendulum and it's sort of like visiting an old friend, you know. Okay, now it's time for the incubation and the downturn and
right.
the introspection and it's like the winter time. Rather than like saying, "Oh no, we don't get to go out and play and be in the sun."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's
Yeah.
just time to rest and time
Yeah.
to, you know, to
Yeah.
recharge and
Okay.
introspect and all those things. So,
Well, you're recharging. You're doing the undefeated mind thing right now, which is building yourself up for when, the shitstorm, if the shitstorm hits. And I feel like I'm putting some of this stuff into practice, and I'm really looking forward to when, things aren't racing the way they're racing, even though I'm
yeah,
keeping my head up.
yeah,
And I am lighting a candle. I am doing more than I was doing back in July when I was like, crying to you.
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Honest.
anything. It's that's candle is the perfect metaphor, I think, because it's really about what I think of as holding vigil for the self. We
Oh,
can get into those dark spaces and, lose ourselves. Beautiful.
holding a vigil for the self. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. It's like a light that we can follow home, you know. It's like the
Amen.
guiding star.
Amen. Well, I love doing this with you. It's the one
Mhm.
thing. It's the one thing I carve out, and I make no apologies. And yay. Now I'm going to go in there and make dinner.
Me too.
All right. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.